blessing. Thank you, everybody. That was beautiful. Ah. As you've heard, we have a special guest today. I'm going to read what she wants you to know. And then I will tell you what I want you to know. Our speaker today is a wonderful presenter who learned much about what she knows about business from growing up the youngest of 10 children in Hawaii, so there's a nice balance there. Differentiating herself from the shadow of 9 siblings required her to develop and use the sales and negotiating skills that she is famous for today. Mae McCarthy has become the quintessential serial entrepreneur, starting at the age of 6 when she got her first lesson in food inventory shrinkage from her brothers who literally ate her profits. Over the past 32 years, Mae has used metaphysical spiritual practices to grow 6 successful businesses in a variety of industries, with the largest having more than 250 employees and over $100 million in annual revenues. So Mae knows what she's talking about. Mae is a member of Center for Spiritual Living Seattle and has been a grateful student of Ernest Holmes, Curtis Hopkins, and others, and as taught by Reverend Dr. Kathy Ann Lewis and Mae's sister, Reverend Sharon Ramey, one of my favorite people in the world. Mae is here today to emphasize the importance of connecting with Spirit as your source to achieve greater levels of success, happiness, and freedom. Here's what I want you to know. How many of you took the Summer Prosperity class last year? Okay, keep your hand up for a second. Okay, now put your hand down if you're not still writing to your CSO. I think 2 hands went down. It works. It works. This is the one that came up with this. Let's welcome Mae McCarthy.
So much. Well, before we get started, can I see with a show of hands how many of you would like to have improved health and physically fit bodies that are pain-free? Yeah? Okay. Would anybody like to have more money and financial freedom to do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it? Okay. Would anybody here like to have harmonious relationships with all family, friends, co-workers, customers, community? Great. Oh, I'm so happy I'm in the right place. This is awesome. Well, it's true that I am a grateful student of New Thought Principles. I got my first introduction to New Thought in 1981. My mother, upon graduating from high school, my mother gave me a book that was published in 1920 by a woman named Florence Scovel Shinn. And the name of it was The Game of Life. Now here's something interesting. My mother is a devout Catholic who converted from Seventh-day Adventist. But somehow she thought that her 10th child needed to understand these principles. There must have been something about me that struck her as needing to go on this path. And I'm grateful because oh my gosh, I've had hundreds and hundreds of copies of that book. And I have given away thousands of them, even to my employees. And I have used those principles, those metaphysical and New Thought principles, to have great success in business and life. I started attending Center for Spiritual Living in Seattle. I pretty much just follow my sister Sharon Ramey wherever she goes to church. You know, so I've hit Unity and Center for Spiritual Living and Catholic Church and all sorts of stuff, but I had my own spiritual practice. I thought I was, kind of a hidden person practicing my New Thought practice. But I still went to church for community, so I just followed wherever Sharon went, and she ended up at Center for Spiritual Living. And I thought that was a great place for us to be. And I'm a tither. I believe in the principle of the law of giving and receiving. So I tithe without even thinking about it. It's kind of like brushing my teeth. And I was tithing to the center, and the leadership said, "Excuse me, what are you doing to be so successful? Because we see your tithes. And I said, I thought it was a trick question. So I said, well, I'm doing what you teach here. Isn't that right? They said, no, you're doing something different, because we don't have tithers at that level very often. What are you doing? So I described that I am a self-proclaimed efficiency expert. I hate to waste time. I really do. I hate to waste time. And I have this knack of taking complicated ideas and making them really easy to understand and implement. I have trained hundreds of salespeople, customer service people, managers, operations people, and executives in my own companies to achieve more of their goals and experience success. So I decided to do the same thing with my spiritual practice, make it really efficient, and so that it could be done on a daily basis. And I've taken principles from business, goal attainment strategies from business, applied gratitude and God to make it a really, really successful practice. And so I explained that to our leadership, and they said, would you teach a workshop? Would you teach other people how to do this? I said, well, sure. Well, after about the 500th person had gone through the workshop, I was asked to write a book. Because in the workshop, which we're going to be doing one today, this afternoon, hope you can all attend, I give everyone a 27-page workbook. But what I don't include are the stories, the application stories that I tell as we're moving through the workshop. And they wanted to have those in writing, so they asked me to write a book. So I did. And I'm happy to say I'm getting emails from all over the place, the Middle East, Sweden, London, I mean, all sorts of different places that this book is somehow making its way to. And I'm grateful, because I really believe that we are in an age of raising consciousness. I do believe that. I think this is our time for the world to understand these principles and really apply them so that we can all elevate prosperity and freedom in the world. Yay! So, but back to why I am here. I have a talk for you that is called Partnering with Your Chief Spiritual Officer for Success and Freedom. And many people ask me, what in the world is a Chief Spiritual Officer? Well, for me, the CSO, or Chief Spiritual Officer, is that characteristic of spirit that guides me and directs me through intuition, through other people, and through signs and messages that I get. And so I'm able to use those in order to achieve my goals and to keep me safe. I decided to bring spirit into my last company in a really obvious way. And so what I did was I looked around me, and I surround myself as a CEO, as a Chief Executive Officer, I surround myself with people whose advice I value. I have a Chief Financial Officer who advises us on the financial health of our company. I have a Chief Information Officer that decides what technology our company needs and what our products need. I have a Chief Operations Officer and Chief Marketing Officer, and so I decided that I wanted to bring God into my business, but I had to give it a title. So I called it the Chief Spiritual Officer. But what I did was I put it at the top of our organizational chart so that I, as the CEO, reported to it. You can imagine what my employees said, right? Who's the CSO? Is it a man or a woman? Do we get to meet them? And my response was, the CSO is a symbol for you, because we are a miracle-making company. It doesn't matter that we compete with 3 Fortune 20 companies. We're going to achieve all of our goals, surpass them, be of greater service to our customers, our vendors, our suppliers, our co-workers. We're going to have stuff happen that is miraculous. And when you don't have a rational explanation for why this is occurring, it's because of the CSO. So I want you all to look for evidence every single day that shows that the CSO is helping us achieve our goals, okay? Okay. I got phone calls, emails, text messages every day from my employees going, oh my gosh, I can't believe the CSO did this. Oh, I had a problem that was ridiculous, and I did what you said. I focused on what I wanted the outcome to be, and the CSO showed up in a miraculous way. Oh my, this is so cool. We had that happen. Does that sound like signs of mine? Yes. Expect and watch for, receive, believe and receive. I had in my companies many different kinds of religious traditions. We had every age group, every gender, every race, every practice of religion. It was really cool. We were a really diversified company. It just worked out that way. These people were extremely well qualified for their position in our company. And no one was offended by this idea of CSO. So I was able to prove that, and I know that my success in business and in life has been due to this partnership with the CSO. But we can use this power in lots of other ways. Vivian, where are you? There you are. You proved that in health. In 1994, the CSO saved my life, too. I had I was in a business meeting, and I had this flash, this picture, this real strong thought of my sister's face in my mind's eye. Anybody ever have that? Just a thought comes into your head out of the blue? Yeah, so I had this thought of Sharon in my mind's eye, and I knew, because of this practice, that meant I needed to contact her. So I happened to be close to her office, and after I was done with my meeting, I just showed up. She was so happy to see me. She had a computer problem that I could fix for free. And as I'm sitting there in my nylon-clad legs crossed doing her computer work, she noticed this little tiny, tiny dot on the outside of my right leg. And she asked me what it is. What is that? Well, you heard in the introduction that I'm from Hawaii, and I'm fair. I had always had that dot, so I told her it was a freckle. She said she didn't feel that it was a freckle. She didn't feel that it was a freckle, and asked me to go see her dermatologist to have it looked at. I was just about to dismiss her fears when my gut hurt. Anybody ever have that? Your gut's like trying to tell you something? Well, my gut hurt, and I knew that was another way the CSO speaks to me. So I did as she said. I made the appointment. I went to see the dermatologist. The dermatologist said, May, it's nothing. It's nothing. It's too small. It can't possibly be anything to be concerned about. Now, one thing to note is that as the last of 10 children, you can imagine I probably had pretty powerful parents. My father was a surgeon. Surgeons consider themselves to be about right here on the same level as God. And we were told as children never to question a doctor's advice. Wow. Doctors know more than you do. Doctors have been trained to know more than you do. And so here I am sitting there with my gut hurting, facing this very strong belief and having to make a choice. Well, I chose God. So I said, I'm so sorry, doctor. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but you need to cut that off. I came back a week later to a diagnosis of malignant melanoma, Clark's level 3. Wow. CSO saved my life. We have lots of stories, and thank you, Vivian, for your story. I mean, we have so many stories in our communities about the power of spirit helping us with healing. We know someone, or we've had this experience ourselves, where spirit comes in, intercedes, and shows its perfection as perfect health within us. We've got that one down. I can know for you that you are perfectly healthy, whole and complete, with anything that you desire to do, easily able to be done in a physically fit, free body. I know that for you, without a shadow of a doubt. We all can know that for each other, right? Mm-hmm. But why aren't we using that same power with that same level of confidence for our finances, for our businesses, for our relationships, for our recreation? Well, I think it's because, we're not taught to. We have so many examples of really, really powerful business people talking about how they rely on this power for success. Bill Gates, who I think is still counted as the wealthiest man in the world, said that often you have to rely on intuition. And Steve Jobs from Apple agreed. He said you actually have to have courage to follow your heart and intuition. And Oprah Winfrey, one of the all-time most influential women in the world, said that she has listened to that still small voice of intuition her entire life. And the only times that she's made mistakes, when she didn't listen. So if Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Oprah Winfrey, Thomas Edison, Dr. Wayne Dyer, and hundreds of other people have said that they rely on intuition as a success tool, why aren't we all doing it? Well, I think it's because most of us aren't taught to. And thank God there are centers like this that teach these principles, but most of the world is not taught to do that. When we have a question about anything, what do? We Google it. Right? We Google it. We talk to our friends. We look for articles. We look for information online. We talk to subject matter experts. We analyze it, measure it, evaluate it before we ever decide to make a decision about anything. Our rational mind has to get on board so that we understand that this is a good decision to make. How many of you are guilty of that? Yeah, that's what we do. That's what we're trained to do. We're trained to do that in our society. Albert Einstein put it perfectly to describe this. He said that we all have an intuitive mind, and it's a sacred gift. And we have this rational mind, which is a faithful servant. But somehow we've created a society that honors this servant, this rational mind, and we've forgotten the gift. Well, what I'm here to do today is to help you to remember what you already know. And that is that the rational mind's a servant and the intuitive mind is the gift that we want to tap into. So I'm going to share with you just 3 things, and being the efficiency expert that I am, I've even given you a cheat sheet. So if you don't have one of these, raise your hand and one will be brought to you. Just keep your hand up and one will be brought to you. So there's just 3 things I want to talk to you a little bit about in terms of this partnership. And the best part is it's really, really easy. The first thing to note is that Spirit, your source of intuition, divine intelligence, God, wants you to achieve your goals and to keep you safe. Okay? But it stands to reason that you should probably have some goals for it to help you with, right? Right? And you need to word those goals with gratitude as though you've already achieved them. How many of you have ever heard someone say, because we probably haven't said it ourselves, but we might have heard somebody else say, I want to lose 10 pounds. Yeah? Right? Well, let's think about that for a minute as a goal. I want to lose 10 pounds. If the goal is to be wanting to lose, do you ever actually get there? No. This practice requires you to word your goals as though they're already complete with gratitude, very similar to the 5-step mind treatment. But we word them that way so that we can enable our subconscious and intuition to show up and point out possibilities for us to achieve those goals. Okay? So a better way to word that goal might be, I am so grateful that I am in a physically fit, trim, toned, energetic body that is pain-free and easy to go on, easily able to go on hikes and walks with my family and friends, and we have a great time. And for my goal, I would add, and I'm eternally youthful and increasingly more beautiful. It's my goal. But regardless of what your goal is, whether it's for work, for finances, for relationships, for health, for recreation, for spiritual connection, any goal is okay. It's the same power that works. So we want to enable our intuition and our subconscious to help us and to point out directions. The second important point is that you can partner with this source of intuition. Now let me make a very, very important clarification. This does not mean there's any separation. We are all one. We are all part of one. But we do have different characteristic names. We call spirit love, intelligence, power, truth. You can name that characteristic of ultimate advisor anything you want. And I've even given you a little place on your sheet where you can write down a name that comes to you. But whatever you want to call it, I call it CSO, but in my workshops people call it divine intelligence, universal truth, power, love. I even have some that call it Fred. I don't know why, but apparently Fred is an ultimate advisor name for them. So call it whatever you want. It doesn't care. It's a characteristic of spirit that represents the ultimate advisor, right? And you have to recognize that there are clear roles and responsibilities that you both will follow, okay? How many of you have ever worked for a living? All right, so you were hired by your company to do something very specific that you are incredibly talented to do. Or you started your own company and you have a similar talent. Would you ever consider going into someone else's office in a completely different department and start trying to do their job for them? Most of us wouldn't. We weren't trained to do that. So stop trying to do God's job. Okay? Your job is to figure out what it is that you want and describe it with gratitude as though you've already completed it, as though you've already achieved the goal. Spirit's job is to create the path for you to get there and to give you one step to take at a time on a path that it creates. Kind of like seeing my sister's face in my mind's eye, right? I didn't know what goal that was for, but it was a lead, an intuitive lead, a message, a sign that said, take a step. So you can either take the step and follow the lead or ask for another lead. And this is where that rational mind comes in and tries to talk you out of stuff. If it doesn't make rational sense, it tries to get you to do nothing. You are not allowed to do nothing anymore. You can either take the step or ask for another lead. Now here, I want you all to look up just about 20% and say after me. CSO? CSO. I need another lead. I need another lead. I'd really like to make it more complicated than that, but I can't. All right? It's really that simple. You just ask for another lead. You either take the step and show action faith or you ask for another lead. You're going to get one. Eventually, you're going to take the steps and reach your goal, and it's really fun, and you get to celebrate and have a great time. Yeah, it's really, really good time. So your job, you do your job, and CSO will do its job. Let me give you an example. I travel about 150 to 200,000 miles a year, domestic. And I have a routine. I arrive in a city, I get my bags, I get to my rent-a-car, I drive to my hotel and drop off my bags. And then I get back in my car and I go to the closest grocery store. I did this last night. I go to the closest grocery store to buy protein shakes and water and stuff that I need for my stay. Okay? So I was in Cleveland doing this. And as I'm in the car ready to go to a grocery store that I know is 5 minutes away because I've been there before, I get this very strong thought about a grocery store that I know that's 15 minutes away. Here comes the rational mind. May. It's 9 o'clock at night. What are you thinking driving across town in Cleveland? Are you kidding me? Oh, and guess what? Your appointment is at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. That's 5 o'clock in the morning Seattle time. You're going to be way too tired. You better just go to the grocery store that's 5 minutes away and get some sleep. Sound familiar? Yeah? Right. And my rational mind's going, oh yeah, that makes sense. You know, just disregard the sleep. But you figure to at least stomp your foot and say, CSO, if this is from you, I need another lead. Now here comes the intuitive mind. Well, it's true that it's 9 o'clock at night, but it's only 6 o'clock in the evening in Seattle. It's too early. You can't go to sleep anyway. And who knows? Maybe everything you want will be on sale. Just make the drive. So I did. I pull into the parking lot, I get out of the car, and as I'm walking into the grocery store, who should be walking out at exactly the same time? But a guy that I met at a trade show 6 months before, who represented a very large health system, a potential customer, who was not returning any of my phone calls or emails for an appointment. Hi, how are you? And we strike up this conversation. Well, while I'm talking to him, he learns that our company has grown, that we've gotten some more customers, that we're, you know, a little bit more viable. And he says, look, while you're in town, why don't you come make a presentation to our group? And I did. Well, that led to another presentation and another presentation and a signed contract worth over $500,000. So let me ask you this. For those of you that are overachievers and who were trained, like I was originally, to have a goal and then to create every little step that it takes to achieve the goal, how many of you would say, okay, well the first step is to drive across town in Cleveland to a different grocery store? This is the way Spirit works. This is why we have such great stories, miracle stories about Red Seas parting, water coming out of rocks, food falling from heaven. This is how we're supposed to live. Miracles like that are supposed to happen in our lives all the time, so much so that miracles become typicals in every area of our life. Okay? You can do this. We can all do this. And the really cool part is that it just makes life a game and a whole lot more fun because you're not doing all the work yourself anymore. All you have to do is your job. Figure out what you want. Describe it with gratitude as though it's already complete. And let Spirit do its job and create the path. Now, often I'm invited to go and speak at centers that have some sort of a prosperity campaign going on or some sort of a capital campaign going on. And the question I'm often asked is, well, how can I get, if I don't have enough money to give and to become prosperous and start giving and start that law in action, you know, how can I make this work? Well, what if you made giving to your center in a really, really meaningful and satisfying way a goal? I'm so grateful that I now give and support my center in a meaningful and satisfying way. And I am prospered and happy and healthy. Now, what if you did that? I had a guy that was in my workshop that did that, and he said, I don't have any money. And I said, well, make it a goal. Let's see leave it up to God to figure out where the money comes from, right? Sounds reasonable. So he did, and he had all sorts of things. He made a $5 commitment that first week, and he agreed that he would give on unexpected income. So he did. He found $50 here. He got gift certificates from people for free dinners. He got all sorts of stuff, and he was able to give regularly. One day he was out for a walk with his dog. And how many of you are dog owners? Okay, so he said that every day he goes on this route with his dog, same route every day, and one day his dog pulled him off on a different route. And as he's walking, he sees this roll of money on the ground, wrapped in a rubber band, honestly. He's looking around for whoever lost it. He's waiting. He goes to a parking area to see if anybody's looking for it. Couldn't find anyone. So he looked up and said, "Thanks, CSO." Counted it out, $325, and he gave $32.50 the next week. He did that for a number of months and finally realized, you know what? It is up to God. So he started to give on unexpected income and his gross paycheck. Within 2 months, he was invited into his boss's office. And the boss said, "You know what? I'm noticing that you're really enjoying your job. You seem lighter and happier and more helpful. And God, some of the creative things that you've come up with recently to help our customers have really been brilliant. We'd like to promote you. And here's a 20% raise." Water coming out of rocks, food falling from heaven, Red Seas parting. Yeah, this is a good way to live. So he was able to jumpstart his good by making the commitment to give. You can do that in any area of your life. You want more appreciation? Start appreciating people. You want more time? Start giving time. It works the same way. It's a law. It is a law. So the third point that's important to remember is that in order for this practice, in order for this relationship to be built up with your CSO, with this source of intuition, with spirit, you have to meet regularly, just like you would with any other relationship. How many of you have ever heard the phone ring and you knew who it was? Chances are you probably knew that person pretty well that's calling you. You have a connection. You can have the same kind of close connection with spirit and be able to discern how spirit speaks to you through gut instincts, through thoughts, through feelings in your heart, through messages from other people. I've even had spirit speak to me on a billboard. I'll tell you about that in the workshop. It's a really great story. But at any rate, you have to create and cultivate this relationship. And I don't have time to go over this daily 7-step practice with you, but I hope you'll stay for the workshop so that we're going to get a chance to practice it in the workshop. But making time, setting time aside for you to be able to cultivate that relationship on a daily basis will pay off. And it's very, very efficient. It only takes 25 to 30 minutes every morning, okay? I promise you, you'll have results. Now, what I'd like to do in closing is have us just read what Ernest Holmes has to say about spiritual partnership. He had a lot to say about spiritual partnership. So if we could just read what's printed here on the bottom together, I'd be grateful. "I know that I am in partnership with the infinite. I identify myself with this partnership, knowing that it always leads to success. I accept that the action of infinite intelligence is back of everything. It is always manifesting itself, and it now does so through the thought pattern of success I am establishing for myself. Conditions and situations about me now start to correspond to my new ideas about them. The invisible presence and power indwelling and surrounding me, which is forever making manifest my thoughts, now creates for me the success with which I have identified my thoughts. May you be blessed. May you be happy. May you be healthy and prosperous and free." Ernest Holmes and Emma Curtis Hopkins would say that there is a good for you, and you ought to have it. And I would add that you should have it now. Thank you very, very much.